As I have mentioned in the previous chapters or lectures, the basic procedures for capturing your potential work and meaningful input. This lesson will lead you in more detail through the process of getting all your incompletes, all your stuff to one place into in. That is the critical first step in getting to the state of mind like water. Just gathering a few more things than you currently have will probably create a positive feeling for you. But if you can hang in there and really do the whole capturing process 100%, it will change your experience dramatically and give you an important new reference point for being on top of your work and your world. When I coach somebody, the capture phase usually takes between 1 and 6 hours. Though it did take an entire 20 hours with one person, it can take longer than you think if you're committed to a full-blown collection that will include everything at work, everywhere else. That means going through every storage area, including your computers, and every nook and cranny in every location, including cars, boats, and other garages and homes, if you have them. Be assured that if you give yourself at least a couple of hours to tackle this part, you can grab the major portion of things outstanding. And you can even capture the rest by creating relevant placeholding notes. For example, purge and process boat storage shed. In the real world, you probably won't be able to keep your stuff 100% collected all the time. If you're like most people, you'll move too fast and be engaged in too many things during the course of a week to get all your ideas and commitments captured outside your head. But it should become an ideal standard that keeps you motivated, consistently clean house of all the things about your work, life that you have your attention. So let's get to the first part. Ready, set. There are very practical reasons to gather everything before you start clarifying it. It is helpful to have a sense of the volume of stuff you have to deal with. Number 2, it lets you know where the end of the tunnel is. And when you're clarifying and organizing, you don't want to be distracted psychologically by an amorphous mass of stuff that might still be somewhere. Once you have all the things that require your attention gathered in one place, you'll automatically be operating from a state of enhanced focus and control. It can be daunting to capture in one location at one time all the things that don't belong where they are. It may even seem a little counterintuitive because, for the most part, most of that stuff was not and is not that important. That's why it's still lying around. It wasn't an urgent thing when it first showed up, and probably nothing's blown up yet because it hasn't been dealt with. It's the business card you put in your wallet of somebody you thought you might want to contact sometime. It's the little piece of techno gear in the bottom desk drawer that you're missing a part for or haven't had the time to install properly. It's the printer that you keep telling yourself you're going to move to a better location in your office. These are the kinds of things that nag at you, but that you haven't decided either to deal with or to drop entirely from your list of open loops. But because you think there still could be something important in there, that stuff is controlling you and taking up more of your energy than it deserves. So it's time to begin. Grab your in tray and half-inch stack of plain paper for your notes. Let's go ahead. Number 1, physical gathering. The first activity is to search your physical environment for anything that doesn't permanently belong where it is, the way it is, and put it into your in tray. You will be gathering things that are incomplete, things that have some decision about potential action tied to them. They all go into inbox, so they will be available for later processing. So what stays where it is? The best way to create a clean decision about whether something should go into the in tray is to understand clearly what shouldn't go in. Here are the 4 categories of things that can remain where they are, the way they are, and with no action tied to them. Supplies. Include anything you need to keep because you use it regularly. Stationery, business cards, stamps, staples, post-it pads, paper clips, ballpoint refills, batteries, forms you need to fill out from time to time, rubber bands, all of these qualify. Many people also have a personal supplies drawer at work containing dental floss, Kleenex, breath mints, and so on. And then reference material is anything you simply keep for information as needed, such as manuals for your software, the local takeout deli menu, your kid's sports team schedule, or your list of internal phone extensions. This category includes all your telephone and address information, any material relevant to projects, themes, and topics, and sources such as dictionaries, encyclopedias, almanacs, and bound archives of corporate records. It also includes books and magazines that you may be keeping as a library. Decoration. It means pictures of family, artwork, and fun and inspiring things pinned to your bulletin board. You also might have plaques, mementos, or plants. Then, equipment. It is obviously your phone, computer, printer, scanner, waste bucket, furniture, clock, chargers, pens, and notepads. You no doubt have a lot of things that fall into these four categories. Basically, all your tools and your gear which have no actions tied to them. Everything else goes into in. But many of the things you might initially interpret as supplies, reference, decoration, or equipment would also have action associated with them because they still are not exactly the way they need to be. For instance, most people have in their desk drawers, on their shelves and bulletin boards, and tucked away in computer files a lot of materials and information that either are out of date or need to be organized somewhere else. Those should go into in. Likewise, if your supplies drawer is out of control, full of lots of dead or unorganized stuff, that's an incomplete that needs to be captured. Are the photos of your kids current ones? Is the artwork what you want on the wall? Are the mementos really something you still want to keep? Is the furniture precisely the way it should be? Is the computer set up the way you want it? Are the plants in your office alive? In other words, supplies, reference materials, decoration, and equipment may need to be tossed into the in tray if they are not just the way they should be and the way they should be. Issues about capturing. Let's deal with that. As you engage in the capturing step, you may run into one or more of the following. 1. You've got a lot more than will fit into one in tray. Number 2. You are likely to get derailed into purging and organizing. Number 3. You may have some form of stuff already collected and organized. You are likely to run across some critical things that you want to keep in front of you. So let's discuss about this. What if an item is too big to go in the in tray? If you can't physically put something in the in tray, then write a note on a piece of letter size plain paper to present it. For instance, if you have a poster or other piece of artwork behind the door to your office, just write artwork behind door on a letter size piece of paper and put the paper in the in tray. Be sure to date it too. This has a couple of benefits. If your organization system winds up containing some of these pieces of paper representing something else, it will be useful to know when the note was created. It's also just a great habit to date everything you handwrite, from post-it notes for your assistant to voicemails you transfer onto a pad. With the note you take on a phone call with a client, if you're using a digital tool that has a date stamp function, it's great to use that for the same reason. The 3% of the time that this little piece of information will be extremely useful makes it worth developing the simple habit. What if the pile is too big to fit into the in tray? If you're like 98% of the people we work with individually, your initial gathering activity will collect much more than can be comfortably stacked in an in tray. If that's the case, just create stacks around the in tray and maybe even on the floor below it. Ultimately, you will be eliminating the stacks as you process and organize everything. In the meantime, though, make sure that there is some obvious visual distinction between the stacks that are in and everything else. Instant dumping. If it is immediately evident that something is trash, go ahead and toss it when you see it. For some of my clients, this marks the first time they have ever cleaned their center desk drawer. If you're not sure what something is or whether it's worth keeping, go ahead and put it into in. You will be able to decide about it later when you process the in tray. What you don't want to do is to let yourself get wrapped up in things piece by piece, trying to decide this or that. Clarifying requires a very different mindset than capturing. It's best to do them separately. You will process your stuff later anyway if it's in. And it's easier to make those kind of choices when you're in the decision making mode. The objective for the capturing process is to get everything into in as quickly as possible so you're appropriately retrenched and have drawn the battle lines. Be careful of the purge and organize bug. Many people get hit with the purge and organize virus as they're going through various areas of their office. If that happens to you, it's okay. So long as you have a major open window of time to get through the whole process. Otherwise, you will need to break it up into chunks and capture them as little projects or actions to do, with reminders in your system like purge 4-drawer cabinet or clean office closet. What you don't want to do is let yourself get caught running down a rabbit trail, cleaning up some piece of your work and then not be able to get through the whole action management implementation process. It may take longer than you think, and you want to go for the gold and finish processing all your stuff and setting up your system as soon as possible. What about things that are already on lists and in organizers? You may already have some list and some sort of organization system in place. But unless you are thoroughly familiar with this workflow processing model and have implemented it previously, I recommend that you treat those lists as items still to be processed. Like everything else in, you will want your system to be consistent, and it will be necessary to evaluate everything from the same viewpoint to get it that way. But I can't lose that thing. Often in the capturing process, someone will run across a piece of paper or a document that causes her to say, oh my god, I forgot about that. I've got to deal with that. It could be a note about a call she was supposed to handle 2 days before, or some meeting notes that remind her of an action she was supposed to take weeks ago. She doesn't want to put whatever it is in the huge stack of other stuff in her in tray because she's afraid she might lose track of it again. If that happens to you, first ask yourself if it is something that really has to be handled before you get through this initial implementation time. If so, best deal with it immediately so you get it off your mind. If not, go ahead and put it into in. You're going to get all that processed and emptied soon anyway, so it won't be lost. So let's start with the desktop. Ready now? Okay. Start piling those things on your desk into inbox. Often there will be numerous things right at hand that need to go in there. Many people use their whole desktop as in. If you are one of them, you will have several stacks around you to begin your collection with. Start at the one end of your workspace, move around, dealing with everything you come across. Typical items will be like stacks of mail, memos, reports, reading materials, post-it notes, collected business cards, receipts, meeting notes. Resist the urge to say, as almost everyone dies initially, well, I know what's in that stack and that's where I want to leave it. That's exactly what hasn't worked before. And it all needs to go into the in tray. I have never had anyone who gave in and actually put their familiar stacks through this system who didn't feel a ton of relief when they did. As you go around your desktop, ask yourself if you have any intention of changing any of the tools or equipment there. Are your mobile devices and phone system okay? Your computer, the desk itself, if anything needs changing, write a note about it and toss it into in. Desk drawers. Next, tackle the desk drawers if you have them one at a time. Any attention on anything in there, any actionable items, is there anything that doesn't belong there? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, put the actionable item into in. Or write a note about it. Again, whether you use the opportunity to clean and organize the drawers or simply make a note to do it later will depend on how much time you have and how much stuff is in there. Countertops. Continue working your way around your office, collecting everything sitting on the tops of cabinets or tables or counters that doesn't belong there permanently. Often there will be stacks of reading material, mail, reports, and miscellaneous folders, support material for action, projects, collect it all. Maybe there is reference material that you have already used and just left out. If that is so, and if you can return to it return to the file cabinet or the bookshelf in just a second. Go ahead and do that. Be careful to check with yourself though about whether there is some potential action tied to the material before you put it away. If there is, put it into in so you can deal with it later in the process. Inside the cabinets. Now look inside the cabinets. What is in there? These are perfect areas for stashing large supplies and reference materials, and equally seductive for holding deeper levels of stuff. Any broken or out of date things in there. Often, I'll find collectibles and nostalgia that aren't meaningful to the person any longer. One general manager of an insurance office, for example, wound up tossing out at least 3 dozen recognition awards he had accumulated over the years. Again, if some of these areas are out of control and need purging and organizing, write that on a note and toss it into in. Floors, walls, and shelves. Anything on bulletin boards that needs action. Anything tagged onto the wall that doesn't belong there. Any attention on your pictures, artwork, plaques, decorations. How about the open shelves? Any books that need to be read or donated. Any catalog manuals or binders that are out of date or have some potential action associated with them. Any piles or stacks of things on the floor. Just scoot them over next to your in tray to add to the inventory. Equipment, furniture, and fixtures. Is there anything you want to do or change about any of your office equipment or furniture or the physical space itself? Does everything work? Do you have all the lighting you need? If there are actionable items, you know what to do. Make a note and put it in some other locations. Depending on the scope of what you're addressing in this process, you may want to do some version of the same kind of gathering anywhere else you keep stuff. As I mentioned in the previous chapter, if you're determined to get to a really empty head, it's imperative you do it everywhere. Some people I work with find it immensely valuable to take me home with them or to a second office location and have me walk them through this process there as well. Often they have allowed the not so important trap to ensnare them in their home life and secondary workspaces, and it has gnawed away at their energy. Mental gathering, the mind sweep. Once you feel you have collected all the physical things in your environment that need processing, you will want to collect anything else that may be residing in your mental RAM space. What has your attention that isn't represented by something already in your in tray? This is where the stack of plain paper really comes into play. I recommend that you write out each thought, each idea, each project or thing that has your attention, a separate sheet of paper. You could make one long list on a pad or in some digital application, but given how you will later be processing each item individually, it's actually more effective on separate sheets. There is a discipline required initially to stay focused on one item at a time as you process it. So giving each thought its own placeholder, as trivial as it might seem, makes it that much easier. And your first captured thought will seldom be the final content you will want to track about it. You will likely not keep these pieces of paper, but it will be handy to have them as discrete items to deal with as you're processing. It will probably take you between 20 minutes and an hour to clear your head onto separate notes. After you have gathered everything else, you will find that things will tend to occur to you in somewhat random fashion. Little things, big things, personal things, professional things in no particular order. In this instance, go for quantity. It's much better to overdo this process than to risk missing something. You can always toss the junk later. Your first idea may be implement global climate change, and then you'll think I need cat food. Grab them all. Don't be surprised if you discover you have created quite a stack of paper in during this procedure. Triggers list. To assist in clearing your head, you may want to review the following incompletion triggers list, item by item, to see if you have forgotten anything. Often, you will just need a jog to unearth something lurking in the back of your mind. Remember, when something occurs to you, write it on a piece of paper and toss it into in. The inventory. If your head is empty of everything personally and professionally, then your in tray is probably quite full and likely spilling over. In addition to the paper-based and physical items in your in tray, your inventory of in should include any resident voicemails and all the emails that are currently staged in the in area of your communication software. It should also include any items on your organizer lists for which you have not yet determined next actions. I usually recommend that people transfer their voicemails onto paper notes, put those into their in trays, along with any organizer notebooks they may have used, the contents of which often need significant reassessment. If you have been using a digital application for anything other than calendar contact information, I suggest you print out any task and to-do lists and put them into your in tray. Emails are best left where they are because of their volume and their efficiency factor of dealing with them within their own subsystem. But you have to understand, in doesn't stay in. When you have done all that, you're ready to take the next step. You don't want to leave anything in for an indefinite period of time, because then it would without fail creep back into your consciousness, since your mind would know you weren't dealing with it. Of course, one of the main factors in people's resistance to collecting stuff into in is the lack of good processing and organizing methodology to handle it. That brings us to the next chapter, getting into empty. So with that, we have handled about the capture part. Let's get to the clarifying part in the next lecture. Thank you very much, guys.